Today I'm going to show you how to install Havoc Off-Road's HST steel tube side step on this 2017 Chevy Silverado 2500 diesel. Now this is going to be the same installation from 15 to 19 on the Silverado 2500 and 3500 diesel, as well as the Sierra 2500 and 3500 diesel. Let's go ahead and get started. So now we are underneath our truck on our driver's side. We're all the way at the front near our front tire. And your first mounting location is going to be right here. There's going to be a threaded hole, and then you're going to have a hole in your pinch weld. Now you're going to take one of your brackets. This is going to be a C-shaped bracket. There's going to be 6 of these in the kit. 4 are going to be for your driver's side, and 2 are going to be for your passenger side. The side with the long oblong hole is going to go to our rocker panel here. The next hole is going to go right below our pinch weld, just like that. We're going to take a provided bolt with lock washer and flat washer and loosely thread that in at the top. Not going to tighten any of these bolts down just yet. Just going to loosely install that so we have room to wiggle that around. At our pinch weld, we're going to take a provided black bolt with a black washer and go up through the bracket, through our pinch weld, and then we're going to take a gold washer and a serrated flange nut at the top of that. Again, we're just going to leave that loose for right now. We're going to do the same thing on the rest of our brackets on our driver's side. So now we're going to take another one of our brackets and we're going to follow our rocker panel. We're going to skip our second threaded hole and we're going to go to our third threaded hole. In the pinch weld, you should also have a hole in that corresponds with it. It's going to be just to the right of your center body mount, which is right here. So we're just going to slide that into place. And again, same as the first bracket, we're going to use a provided gold bolt, lock washer, and flat washer. And just thread that in at the top. And then a black bolt with washer through the bottom portion of the bracket into our pinch weld with a gold washer and serrated flange nut at the top. Again, leaving it a little bit loose so we have some room for adjustments. So now for our third bracket, if we continue to follow our rocker panel, we're going to skip our next threaded hole and then we're going to move to where we have 2 holes, one larger and one smaller. And again, we're going to use our U-nut, slide that into place, grab our bracket, and then our zinc bolt, lock washer, and washer. Thread that in. And then black bolt, black washer, up through the bottom, through the pinch weld with a washer and our serrated flange nut at the top. Now if we continue down our pinch weld, we'll have another large hole and smaller hole. Same thing that we did on our third bracket. We're going to use our U-nut, slide that into place like that. Grab another one of our brackets with our zinc bolt, lock washer, and flat washer. Thread that into place. And again, black bolt with washer through the bottom portion, through the pinch weld with a washer and our serrated flange nut. Now we're going to grab our driver's side board. We can see that we have some welded brackets that are hanging off. Those are going to connect to the bottom portion of our brackets that we already put on the truck. All of our brackets on our driver's side are going to be the same. On the passenger side, you're going to have 2 different brackets for the front and the back. Also, we want to make sure that these brackets are facing towards the rear of the truck. Once we're certain we have the right one, this is going to actually sit above the bracket that we put on the truck already. And then we're going to get these carriage bolts that are going to come from the outside like that. And then we're also going to use a black washer over that with a black serrated flange nut. So now we can go ahead and set it up into place. Like I said, we're going to slide those right over the top of our frame mounted brackets. And I have somebody helping me out with this. And to make sure this board stays in place for us, we're going to go ahead and put one carriage bolt in the side here with a washer and our serrated flange nut. And then we also want to put one through the top with, again, our washer and our serrated flange nut. Now that'll hold everything in place for us, and then we'll go back to the front and start putting all our carriage bolts in. So now we're at our first bracket, and again, we're going to use a black carriage bolt going through the side. You might have to wiggle it around a little bit to get that in there. That's why we left everything loose. Then you're going to use a black washer and our black flange nut on the back. Again, just going to leave that a little bit loose. Same thing through the top. Our carriage bolt with our washer and serrated flange nut. Now we've moved on to our third bracket. We already installed our bolts in our second bracket. That was what was holding everything in place for us. But again, it's going to be just the same carriage bolt, washer, and flange nut on the side and on the top. And now our last bracket. So now with all of our bolts in place, we actually have quite a bit of adjustment in this board. You can see these slotted holes here will allow us to go in or out with our board. And then you also have some adjustment where your board meets the pinch weld and the frame up here. So we're going to worry about the in versus out for right now. And we're actually going to slide ours all the way in. That's just the look that we prefer. And then we're going to go back through and tighten up all of our bolts holding our board to our brackets. So now starting on our fourth bracket, we're going to take a 13mm and tighten up our two carriage bolts. You don't want to go too tightly on these bolts, just about 20 foot-pounds. But we're going to go back to the rest of our brackets and do the exact same thing. So now we have a level on our board, and we have a friend holding it up into place for us, so it's level. And then we can go ahead and take a 13mm wrench and socket and tighten down our pinch weld bolt at the front. Then we can go ahead and tighten up the bolt that's going into the frame. Now you want to be very careful on this bolt. Since it is just threaded into the frame, we don't want to rip out those threads. Then we can move on to our next bracket. So now we've moved to our second bracket, and same exact thing. We're going to tighten up the pinch weld bolt. And then we can tighten down our frame bolt. Now we're on our third bracket, and same exact thing, pinch weld bolt. And then the bolt going through our U-nut. And now on to our last bracket. Now we can move on to the passenger side. So now the first thing that we need to do on our passenger side is remove our def tank cover. That's going to be 4 10mm bolts, 1 on each side, and then 2 in the center at the bottom. Make sure you hold on to those. We are going to want to reinstall our cover once we're done with our running board. Now we'll move to the other side and remove our last 2 bolts. Our last bolt's going to be right here. And then we can just pull off the cover like that and set it aside. Now our first bracket is going to be located right here at this opening in the pinch weld, right in front of our def tank. And our first bracket is going to look like this. It's going to have a square with a little tab sticking out. It's going to have a welded nut at the top and then a little bracket coming off of that. Now to get that in there, we're actually going to go up through the side right here like that, and then we're going to use this bottom tab to slide it over into place. Now we not only want to line up our hole with that welded nut on the bracket, but that tab that was pushed out is also going to line up with a hole that's in the frame on the back of the truck. Now you should just have to lift that up into place and drop it into that hole. And once you do that, you should be able to tug on this bracket and it's not going to go anywhere. That's how we know we're in the right spot. Our second bracket location is going to be at the end of our def tank. There's going to be a hole in our pinch weld here, and then there's also going to be a threaded hole in the rocker panel. Our second bracket is going to look like this. It's going to be similar to the first bracket, except instead of a tab, there's just going to be one slotted channel. And that's going to fit right over the top like we did on our first bracket. And then through that threaded hole, we're going to use a zinc plated bolt with lock washer and flat washer. And just loosely thread that in place for right now. Now if you follow your rocker panel down, you're going to see another threaded hole. We're going to skip that, and we're going to go to our 2 holes, one larger, one smaller. Same as our driver's side. We're going to use our U-nut, that side to the back or inside body of the truck. Slide that into place like that. So now our last 2 brackets are going to be the same as our driver's side. We're going to use a zinc bolt with flat washer and lock washer through our U-nut. And then a black bolt and black washer through our bracket, through our pinch weld with a zinc washer and serrated flange nut at the top. Again, just loosely installed. Then we'll move to our last bracket. So now if we continue down our rocker panel, we're going to have another set of holes, one large, one small. We're going to get another U-nut. Now we're going to set our last bracket into place, again with our zinc bolt, lock washer, and flat washer. Thread that into our U-nut. And then our black bolt and washer through our bracket, through our pinch weld. with a zinc washer and serrated flange nut on top. So now on our passenger side board, our two front brackets are going to look different from our two rear brackets. The front brackets are going to be more of a box shape. They're going to have three sides with a hole at the top and a hole at the side. The two in the rear are going to be more of an L shape. They're also going to have a hole in the top and a hole in the side. And I'm going to show you how they attach before we actually do it. So on our two front brackets, we're going to get a large M10 black bolt with a lock washer and a flat washer. That's going to go up through the center of our bracket and up into that welded nut on each of our first two brackets. Now the side bolt, instead of the carriage bolts that we've been using in the past, we're going to use a M8 bolt with a black washer, go through there, and then you're going to get a washer and a serrated nut for the back of that. Now on our other two brackets, those are going to be using the carriage bolts, and they're going to install the same way that we did all of the brackets on our driver's side. So now with the help of a friend, we're going to lift our board into place. Our rear two brackets on our board are going to fit over the top of our brackets on our frame. And our two front brackets are going to go to the front or to the right of the brackets that are on the frame. Now to hold everything in place, we're going to use our carriage bolt on our third bracket here with our black washer and our black serrated flange nut through the side. And then again, we're also going to do that at the top. And that'll hold everything in place so that we can get the rest of our bolts in. Again, just leaving those a little bit loose so we have adjustment later on. So now we're going to hold our board in place. We're going to take a large provided black bolt with lock washer and flat washer and feed that carefully into our welded nut in our first bracket. Once that's in place, we're going to take our smaller black bolt and washer and feed that through the side of our bracket and then into the bracket that's on our board with another black washer and serrated flange nut. Again, we're just going to leave that loose for right now. Now we're at our second bracket, and again we're going to use a large black bolt with lock washer and flat washer going up through the pinch weld into that welded nut in our bracket. And we're just going to loosely thread that in place. Next, we're going to take our bolt with black flat washer, go through the side with another black washer and our serrated flange nut. I'm just going to leave that loose for right now as well. Now our last bracket is going to be the same as our third bracket. We're going to take our carriage bolt and go in through the outside and then into our bracket on our truck. Again, you might have to wiggle that around a little bit to get it through. And then we're going to take a black washer on the back side with a black flange nut. We're going to do the same thing at the top, down through the bottom with a washer and a serrated flange nut at the bottom. Now before we tighten up our brackets, we're going to adjust it the same way we did on our driver's side by pushing our board all the way into our bracket. And then from there, we can use our 13mm to tighten up our carriage bolts on our fourth and third bracket. And now we can move to our front two brackets, which are going to tighten a little bit differently. So now in our second bracket, the first thing that we're going to tighten up is our 16mm bolt here. Before we do that, we're actually going to hold up the board into place, and then we're going to go ahead and tighten that down. And then we're going to go to our front bracket and tighten up our other 16mm bolt before we tighten up our side bolts. So now we're back at our front bracket, and again we're going to tighten up our 16mm bolt first. And then we can go back and tighten up our side bolt. Now our side bolt is going to be a 13mm, so we're going to use a wrench and a socket, tighten that up. Like that. Then we'll move back to the second bracket. Now on our second bracket, before we tighten up this outside bolt, we're actually going to go up top and tighten up the bolt that's into our rocker panel. That's going to be a 13mm. And again, we don't want to go super tight on this bolt because it is into a threaded insert in the rocker panel, and we don't want to rip those threads out. About 20 foot-pounds is all you need here. Now that we have that, we're going to go back through and tighten up this bolt here. That's again going to be a 13mm. And now we can move to our third and fourth bracket. Now on our third and fourth brackets, we're going to go ahead and tighten up our pinch weld bolts first. It's going to be a 13 on the bottom and top. Tighten that up there. And then same thing on the fourth bracket. Now with those tight, we can go back through and tighten up the top two bolts. Again with our 13mm. Now we can reinstall our def cover. Now our def tank cover should slide right underneath our running board brackets. Slide right into place, and then we can reinstall our 4 bolts and tighten everything down. That's going to complete the installation. If you have any questions, give us a call or visit us online.